Okay, we are live. Welcome to episode 3 of the Dalton and Darren show. Remember, we are running our Twitter poll to come up with our official name. If you check out my Twitter account, Dalton_Kellett, it's under the pinned post at the top of my profile. So vote there, and whoever's winning name gets chosen, gets a signed visor from Dalton and Darren. So look forward to that. Before we start, let's go over the 4 options. So there's leave it as the Dalton and Darren show, which wouldn't be a terrible option. And then, sorry, I'm just pulling up my Twitter here. So, or we have the debrief with Dalton and Darren, kind of keeping with that alliteration theme. D2 Speedcast, that was somebody's suggestion, and Dalton and Darren talk tech. Currently, D2 Speedcast is leading with 53% of the votes. So if you feel strongly about any of the other options, cast your votes. Alrighty, so we're going to go over COTA today. That was last week's race. Back to road course racing after a couple ovals. Not to say that road courses are less interesting because this race had lots of action, especially on the opening laps. 32 lap race, 1 or 2 stop strategy was kind of how it played out for most guys. We started 20th, not the best qualifying run, finished 18th, was it? Yeah, remember? 18th. No, sorry. We think we started 23rd and finished 18th because we moved up a few spots, but made a mistake on the second lap, and it's a really finicky track just with the track limits and all that. But we're kind of diving right into it. We got the start, and here we go.
Yeah, you can see you back there with Colton and Zach Veach and Kaiser, really tight with everybody, aren't you? I mean, there's a lot of crashes and mayhem at the end of the first lap, end of the first corner, wasn't there?
Yeah, you always want to be careful at the starts in these. I mean, real races and these I races. It can get a little crazy. So if we swap over to our highlight reel, so this is actually something new we're going to try. This is a replay of the stream. We've edited some clips, and you can actually hear the in-car audio with Darren and myself and my engineer Daniele.
Yep. Who was helping us out with strategy and calling the race and everything, wasn't he? So
Yep.
this is what you were streaming live and what we watch and try and keep up to speed with you.
Yeah. So you can see one of the initial challenges coming to the start when you're towards the back is that the front half of the field all the way over on the left here they're already going right. So you've got to basically take the last corner at speed, but also avoid hitting the guy in front of you, who in this case is our fellow compatriot, Canadian James Hinchcliffe. We seem to be magnets for each other in this series. I'm always starting behind or beside or in front of him. So you can see I'm trying to carry speed, going around the outside. You can hear Darren's cueing me, going, looking
Yeah,
left.
I
Go ahead.
always try on starts and restarts to switch my view to the leaders to see what they're doing, whether they're even if it's like trying to pit or whatever. See, Colton dive bombed and went like made your 3 wide. Actually, nobody spun on this. It was on one of the restarts. I think it was a bit of chaos coming out of turn 1.
Yep. So just ride along part of this first lap. Zach slowing down, gets caught up. Try to take him on the outside here. I think he gets around us. Someone's at the fence on the right.
You give way, which is right at this stage of the race. You know, we were making sure we lasted to the end of the race, right?
Yep. And it's just like real life, strategically in this moment, you're thinking, okay, if I can be super aggressive or I can do something silly like I do right here.
That might need a little apology to Kyle, I think.
Yeah, sorry, Kyle. So you can see here, we'll replay that one. I basically outbroke myself a bit, and then there's kind of the Constantina effect where like a car brakes here, and then your brake point moves back and back and back. And as you get further back in the field, well, effectively you have to be braking earlier than you think. And I basically caught up in the field and had to get off the brake, start to the left to avoid hitting Zach, and more or less used Kyle's side pod to stop myself from going off track. Sorry, Kyle.
I mean, the other thing as well is what you want to describe to everybody is on the start of the races there, you know,
You good? Oh, I think Darren's internet's chopping in and out. Um, Not sure what Darren was going for, but he's probably saying that we want to be getting through those corners initially in the race and not. Let me just get on Skype here and see if we can. No, Darren's video's frozen. Hey, your
Oh, I'm
Wi-Fi went all nuts there, and we missed the last 30 seconds or so.
Am I back?
You're back, yeah. What were you saying?
Okay, cool. Well, I was just trying to say I don't know how much you guys got on me, but when you're at the start of the races, uh, you've got guys up front. You were battling with Zach, right, and trying to overtake him, and you overtook him, which was great. You just didn't realize that Kyle was slowing down because everybody else was slow in front.
Yeah, and that's just that Constantina effect that can really catch you off guard. Here, this was pretty exciting. Again, early in the race, you've got everyone kind of bunched up. We've got one, two, three, four cars going into turn one here, and it was pretty hectic. It looks like Oliver's not doing the right thing. He's spinning out. Yep. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, it was. Looks like Zach got into Tony, spun him around, and I just barely squeaked through here. So show on my onboard. It was pretty hectic.
Yeah, 'cause you've got your own little race going on here with the guys up in front, Zach, and he runs wide.
Put a bit of pressure on him, get on the push to pass, trying to get the pass. We've got push to pass, extra boost in these cars, try to get the pass done. And here I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to take the outside because I know it's going to bunch up on the inside.
Jeez
Zach
Louise,
goes
guys.
into the side of Tony, or Robbie, who then hits Tony, and I just squeezed through there. That was pretty exciting. So
Lots of good jobs from me and Daniele,
back to iRacing
because we didn't know what the heck was going on.
TV. So we've
Back on you.
Yeah, good little battle with Zach here. Not trying to be too. I throw kind of just a block just for the sake of doing it, but not really actively defending because at this point in the race, you're more thinking that you want to finish the race. You're not fighting for that 18th position that hard right now, especially given that we're not top five.
You both would have done a faster lap there than if you would have defended really super aggressively, going really super tight. You would have both lost another second,
Yeah,
guys. Still, right?
yeah.
Jen talked about this with Tony and Sebastian today, right? Meeting beforehand. Let's work together.
And with the same move again.
Down into
Like,
that hairpin's really tough, right? That's one of the
yeah,
slowest parts of the track, and Zach was braking a little early, and probably you took an opportunistic kind of move on him.
yeah. Man, it lost the position to Kyle, but got it back here. And Kyle locks up and almost gets
Oh
us.
yeah,
Just he damages his front wing. And
yeah,
at this point, I've had so many front lockups that I think the front tires were done because iRacing doesn't model flat spots, which is basically if I actually we can show the suspension cam. How about that? Right, front. See if we get the lockout. I think it was.
yeah. And we thought you had suspension damage because we couldn't see wing damage or anything, and we
Oh.
and we were pretty committed to a one-stop strategy, even this early on.
Mm-hmm.
Inside.
So you can see I've locked up the inside front here where it stops moving. So a flat spot is where you lock the tire up and it basically scrapes the rubber off the bottom of the tire and goes from being a nice round shape to like a round with a flat, and then that vibrates and makes you lose grip. The game doesn't model that, but what it does is it basically takes away grip from the tire when you lock up. So with those late moves, we had so many flat spots that I think my front tires were done. And like Darren said, we were thinking one stop strategy, but those lockups really hurt the grip in the front, and we lost pace, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think that early hit that you had with Kyle on
Hmm.
like the first lap where you hit his side pod, that was on that same side as well that
Yep,
he hit,
it's true.
spun and hit you again, and multiple very small touches can affect the handling as well.
Yeah, and it's hard to know with the game because it doesn't really tell you if you have damage. You can see it visually sometimes,
Mm,
but there's times when you may have suspension damage and it won't actually tell you, which can be hard. Just a
yeah,
reminder to everyone watching that if you have any questions, please comment and ask. About strategy, about on track moves. We'd love to make this interactive. So we're
yeah.
working lap 4. Again, we're thinking one stop. So we know there's going to be a competition
Yellow, yeah.
yellow coming at lap 12. And given that our pace wasn't great at this point, we weren't really we were saving fuel a little bit, but not too much. Um, Basically, trying to hit our pit window lap 17 or so. Which, if we go to our replay, we got some audio of that. This is when I hit Zach again. We don't need to see that. We've seen that. So yeah, here you. Oh yeah, this was actually pretty exciting. Um, there's the lockup. So we've got Max had some damage, and he's gonna pit because his front wing's damaged, and we didn't know. I just thought he was slow, so I tried to make the move, and he comes across and almost collects us
As he's trying to go into the pits.
as he's trying to pit, and you can hear Daniele, my engineer, just dying. He's pretty frustrated.
Yeah.
So you can hear him here. Talking about fuel numbers. So he's saying, our mile per gallon needs to be 3.1 to 3.15. So on the dash, you can see Darren and I's things, our webcams block the dash. But
Mhm.
basically, on the bottom part of the steering wheel, there's a box that shows your mile per gallon number. Running hard would be 2.96 miles per gallon with a little fuel save will get you 3.1 to
Well, yeah.
3.215 kind of thing.
So you didn't.
Uh,
We didn't really need to save too much. We were just trying to be uber
yep,
sensitive
you can
on
do that.
you know that last half a lap.
3.1,
You don't want to be half a
3.15.
lap short, right?
No.
So then
So
you
question
didn't
coming
want to be
in,
too aggressive.
why a one stop strategy and can you change on the go? With this track, it's a long lap and it's a long time in the pits. I think we determined that it was about 35 seconds lost per pit stop relative to your average pace and the long lap. So you don't want to lose, relative to your competition, you stand to lose a lot more time than you would on an oval because there's just not you're not doing enough laps to where you can fuel save more than one lap. I think we worked out to save an extra to fuel save an extra lap, we would need to be at 3.2 or something for 20 laps, which is more than 2/3 of the race. Whereas on
And,
an
and,
oval,
and we tested that on lap time. If you can correlate that, Dalton, to
mhm,
lap time, saving fuel is a skill that you have to try and save the fuel, but still go
okay,
fast. That's the big. That's the big point, isn't it? And we did a
yeah,
lot of we did a lot of testing and it's very track specific how long the straights are and what have you.
hmm
But it's a big
yeah, we've really
skill that you've
lost
got
the
to try
front
and
end. I think we
save
got to put
fuel,
a
but still go as fast as you did before, which is kind of
damn it somewhere.
you physically can't,
No,
but you've got to still go pretty
yeah,
damn
or maybe
fast.
just
And
from
the lap
battling,
times
locking up
that we were going
tires
to
and
have to
puncture
do to
parts.
save
I
that
don't know.
fuel, we were going to lose so much time, weren't we?
Yeah, because the other strategy option was to pit under yellow, which we opted not to do. Because when you pit under yellow, everyone's behind the safety car, and basically you're losing track position like where you are in the order. If you pit from fifth, you're going to come out 20th or 15th or whatever, but you're not losing distance to them. So you're going to start only a few seconds behind them. And our thought was with 17 laps to go after the yellow that we knew, or 18, that if we could save enough fuel to extend our 16 lap pit window to the 17 or 18 laps to make the finish, um, if we could basically do that at a pace that was fast enough where we would be quicker, even at a slower lap time than having to do the pit stop, then we could leapfrog the leaders and be in a position
Yeah.
to win. But the number we had to hit, I think, was 3.6 miles per gallon, and the pace was so far off that it still would have been slower than
Yeah.
running hard and doing the pit stop. Uh,
I think the big thing for us was track position. and what everybody did
From
under
birth.
yellow. A lot of guys a few guys pit before the yellow, and a few guys pitted on the yellow as well. But you had to have like Don said, you had to have track position. Our goal from starting where we did was to try and leapfrog
Yeah, we
people.
made
You know,
9.26 on that lap. Sorry, that's the replay um, talking, not me.
yeah. And we knew if we stopped under yellow, one of the big things, wasn't it, Doc? If we stopped under yellow or before the yellow, we weren't going to make. Nobody was going to make it to the end. We'd already governed that and practiced that, hadn't we?
Yeah,
In the practice sessions before the race. So we knew those guys that had pit under yellow, they weren't going to make. They had to make one more
Pit
pit
road is
stop
closed.
anyway.
Caution,
yeah,
Dalton.
Okay,
Pit
they would
road
have
is
had maybe
closed.
fresher tires,
Please do not pit
to
under
maybe be a
caution.
little bit
We
faster,
will
but
not
you would have
clear
been
your
so
boarding
far
pass.
in front of
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing is that during these races we're always watching what's going on, right? So we've got Darren's watching and this would be true in real life. You got the live timer and scoring up. Daniele's got that software as well, so we can see what everyone's doing. We know when everyone's pitting, and at this point, we knew that there weren't a lot of guys. That it just wasn't feasible, and no one was going for that. You know, that two
I
stop
think
strategy.
I think the only guy that did was the one guy that was a phenom in this race, and that was we got to talk about him,
Hmm.
the F1 driver Lando Norris, who came in for this one-off race, who does this type of racing a lot, as we've talked about before. He was super fast, wasn't he?
Yeah,
And basically had the whole field covered by a long way, and he had the pace. He got out so far in front of everybody because he started on pole, and he built a lead up because he wasn't battling with anybody. He could pit, and he came out in
sixth
sixth
place.
place, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
we were watching him, so he came out in sixth place. So he didn't really lose track position. Everybody had to do a pit stop again, including him. He would have had a shorter pit stop and would have had fresher tires, so he was just going to kill everybody anyway.
yeah, and just to qualify, so we can see actually here under yellow,
Everybody,
we're
yeah,
staying out, but we've got a bunch of guys pitting. Most of these guys that you see, Shelton, Hunter Ray, Tony, Rob, James, they all had
yeah,
damage. So at this point, maybe they had elected to go to that really
yes,
aggressive fuel save strategy, knowing that the pace they're going to have to run at the 3.6 miles per gallon is going to be super slow. Like there's no way they're going to win, but maybe they can salvage a top 10, top 15,
hmm
which is something we had talked about in the pre-race meeting. Um,
yep,
with our guys with Seb's strategist and Tony's strategist, they hadn't tested it yet, and they were thinking, oh, we're going to go into practice and see what lap time we can do hitting our 3.6, and we were like, yeah, guys, it's not going to work. We've already tried. There's no way. Dogs bollocks. Thanks for the follow. Got a question. Do you have any feedback from the simulator, such as steering and braking? Do you find the new the windshield distracting? As far as the feedback, there's a force feedback system. Actually, I'll take my webcam off and show you my rig. So this is brand new. Fanatec DD2. It's, you see all the tools are still laying around. I've finally got everything set up, so I got to organize my wires and all that. But so that's a direct drive wheel, and it actually can produce up to 25 newton meters of torque. It's pretty realistic, really high fidelity. Same idea as what Darren's got at the iAdvance simulator. This was sponsored by Racecraft One, a company in town, and yeah, they're really high fidelity. You feel every bump, every curb. The brake is a load cell with a spring and damper system. It's not quite the same as real life, but it's pretty good. The main thing you're missing is that seat of the pants feel. You don't get the sensation of the rear of the car moving out, or the car sliding under you, or just the physical aspect of the acceleration. Which, to go back to our Indy's question, is iRacing physical? It's mental. It's very mental. It's not as physical as the real car. No, I mean it's just you just can't replicate the heat and the load, right, Darren? I mean it's just
yeah.
not the same.
A lot more men, especially these races where there's something on the line. There's your peers are all out there. We're on TV. This one means something. A lot of these iRacing races.
more just
they
for
don't
fun.
yeah, they don't necessarily mean so much. So you kind of drive them accordingly, don't they? But
Yeah,
with the braking and steering, you can we tweak them nearly all the time consistently, don't we?
yeah,
With regards to how much feedback there is. Do we want more? Do we want less? Do we want more for qualifying? Do we want less for qualifying and more for the race? We're always working on how much force you are physically putting into the brake pedal to get the modulation and everything. And I mean,
yeah,
you can talk about the windscreen as well. You're
yeah.
pretty much on top of it now, aren't you?
Yeah, and actually that's why I pulled this view up here so you can see it, and this is the view that iRacing outputs during the stream. It's a bit left of my center of view, so I'm actually looking like in the center at this vertical bar. And honestly, even driving the real car from the first time I hopped in, you just don't really notice it. The temperature's a lot higher, so there's that. But visually, it's really not that bad. The only time that it gets you is low light when the sun's coming down. When the angle of incidence is high, you get a lot of glare, and that can definitely be a factor. But luckily, there's not too many night races, so not too much to worry about that. Overall, it's definitely a positive. The only difference is that the color is a bit more yellow in real life because of the color of the acrylic that you're looking through and the little heating elements for the anti fog. Um, Sun Surfer, when you're drafting behind somebody, does save fuel? Does that negatively affect the fuel consumption of who you're drafting behind? Actually, it would make both cars more efficient. If I can use my mouse to illustrate the point, and
Kind of
another
shift,
mouse.
yeah, don't you?
Yeah, so we've got my two mice here. So if you imagine an aerodynamically efficient shape is a teardrop, kind of fat in the front and tails off at the end, the rounded corners or the rounded edges. The closer you can get to that elongated teardrop shape, the better. So one car, you can imagine this would be its radius from this 2 points to the height here. It's that's a sharper bend than if you were to take two mice tip to tail, and that arc now has a shallower radius, so it's deflecting the air less. So the two cars drafting are actually more efficient,
Hmm.
and can go faster. So you're actually helping out your friend when you're using their draft to save fuel and get
If
by
you
them.
have any, yeah, exactly, yeah. Kind of sharing it, right?
Yeah.
And it depends on the track as well, doesn't it, Dalton? You've got to be able to stay behind somebody for long enough,
Hmm.
and so you and get super close
Yeah.
where you lift. The guy behind is lifting a hell of a lot because you're in a super big draft when you get super close.
Yeah.
Um, but you've got to be able to stay there kind of through the corners as well. It's no good you kind of drafting up and then dropping back in the corners and then
Hmm.
drafting up in the race. That isn't really affecting. It's helping you, but not the guy in front. You want to be able to really stay there all the time.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna pull up a clip to actually illustrate how we do the fuel saving. This is kind of an interesting something you might not have seen before. So I'm behind Kyle, and
And
somewhere
everybody's going off.
everyone's going off. I have to find the clip. So basically, what you do is you're flat out down the straightaway, and it's not that one because I pass him. Here we go. So you're flat out,
There we go.
and
There we go.
instead of being flat on the gas all the way into the brake zone, where basically you're 100% throttle, and you hit the brakes to gas, hit hit the brakes to slow down for the corner. You will lift off the gas before your brake zone, coast with no gas and brake for a while, and then hit the brakes. So you can kind of listen here. You can hear it.
And watch your pedals, yeah.
Yeah, watch the pedals. Yeah, lift.
Coast, coast,
Oh,
coast. Oh,
then I
gotta lift
brake.
again, and then brake.
Little tap on the gas, not to lose too much position to them. So basically, you're just saving fuel that way. Um, so
Full
then,
throttle is the big burn, right? Full
yeah,
full throttle
alright,
burns all the
yeah, that
fuel. So and when you're at full speed, you've got maximum
around
downforce
us.
as well. So
Alright.
the car's
Remember to
super
give me a
loaded,
reminder. Leaving pit lane.
right?
Interval. Yep. Sorry, that was the clip playing.
Yeah,
uh,
so the biggest stress on the fuel burning is at the end of every straight because that's when the car is struggling. It's at highest speed. It's at maximum. It's the car's finding it hardest to push itself through the air.
mhm.
So if you can coast, then that's when it's the biggest saving.
I guess basically it has to use the most fuel at that point for a given mile per hour increment, because the drag goes with the speed of, or with the square of the speed. So like I said, it's going to be a lot bigger effect at a higher speed. Does iRacing know the different track temperature and track surface? Yeah, actually it does.
Yeah.
We had a conversation with one of the iRacing and engineers last week, with the uh, STEM nonprofit that I work with, 1080. We're doing a little video series with them, and we had the lead VD engineer for iRacing on for a Q&A, and he was explaining to us their process for getting these tracks and cars modeled. And they actually will go out and test the friction of the surface, and they will basically laser scan the tracks, the entire surface of the track, so they can get, down to the resolution of you know a dime or a penny sized rock undulation in the surface. And that, like, if there's a bump on the track that you'd feel in real life, you'll feel it in iRacing, and they'll get the different friction coefficients.
Hmm.
um, as on different asphalt versus pavement versus the curbs versus paint. Like the painted outside of the track here, that green isn't grass, that's paint. It's grass up
Hmm.
here, but on the outside of the curbs, that's paint, and that's going to be either slipperier or a lot stickier. There's different kinds, right, Darren? There's some paint
Yeah.
without grip, and there's some with sand in
Yeah,
it.
there's some like it's like perforated concrete or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And that's part of the track walk we do. iRacing does a really good job of modeling all those intricate nuances of different tracks to tracks and corner to corner. Even
Mhm.
at COTA, there's some tracks that you would go on that green, and there are some corners, sorry, that you just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Uh, but they do a good job, and certain times with the temperatures and track surfaces, they model them. They have morning, noon, afternoon, nighttime, sunset, and the more track usage as well. So during this race, the track's getting what we call rubbered in, as it's getting more used, getting cleaner, getting more rubber laid down in the corners. So it's kind of the track's changing all the time. So Dalton's having to adjust pretty much like he does have to do in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, if all of a sudden it becomes overcast and you're getting less heat in, or if it starts to get humid and it rains or something, those are things you have to adjust on the fly. So we'll ride along for the restart here.
He's gone. He's gone. He's gone.
There's Darren cueing me.
Yeah, you see, that's where I was watching the leader, and he'd already gone before they went green. Yeah, I'll remind you
Yeah.
when you pit.
So I'm gonna push the pass. That's that green border on the steering wheel there. Trying not to lose any track position here.
Maybe not.
So Takuma's a lap
He's a
down.
lap down.
Oh.
Yeah.
um, but he's racing his own race, so he's under no obligation to really let us by. This is a few laps later, battling with Kyle again. Kyle and I kind of were doing this for most of the race.
Yeah.
Um, we ended up ahead, but so here, Darren, is a question for you.
Yeah.
Can you read it off the stream? Do you have it pulled up
Yeah,
there?
so how different are the 2020 IndyCars compared to those that I raced? Are the fundamentals the same as far as coaching, or have you had to adapt? And if so, how? Well, yeah, the fundamentals are pretty much exactly the same, and this is how I kind of coach pretty much all my guys, whether they're driving a USF 2000, which is an entry level car, to an Indy car, a historic car. The basic fundamentals of my philosophy that I try to, coach and talk to people like Dalton about how they drive the car is all the same. And pretty much I'll take that driving philosophy in whatever car I drive. Now, you have to adapt. This is a very high downforce, high powered car. It's got some specifics, but the principle is still exactly the same. How we brake into the corner, how we accelerate out of the corner, where the minimum speeds are in the corner. The driving nuances, they are a little bit different. This car has got a third spring, which makes it a bit different, but it's basically the same as it's probably about the same sort of downforce as some of the cars that I drove. Um, but we're constantly adapting. Dalton's teaching me things. I'm teaching him things. I've got to adapt to try and get the best out of my drivers, Dalton, and every day is different. We're teaching each other all the time, aren't we, fella?
Yeah, we are, and I think one of the big things that I've learned from Darren is, like I said, that consistent approach to driving. Before you have a when you're just a driver without a driver coach, sometimes you go from team to team as a young guy, and you're basically being taught what they think is right, and that may be valid or it may not, and it usually depends on what the engineer at that team believes, and that's great if you get the right engineer with the right car, but I think it helps to have a consistent process to apply across different formulas. The way that we work on driving is something that you could do in an IndyCar, in a lights car, and drove the LMP2 car last year, and we did had some good runs there. And it would probably apply in a GT car, maybe with some modifications to what you're doing under the brakes, because without the downforce, but the overall principles would be more or less be the same.
And I think that's right. We go to all these different teams, don't we, all the time? Like you were saying, the LMP2, GTs, the IndyCars, Indy Lights teams, and they've all got their own little philosophies and what they think's best, right?
Yeah,
They're all trying to do their best, and I really love our little side of things when we go away from the team. You have somebody that you can say, well, we've always got to
yeah,
question everything nearly all the time, right? To try and get better.
yeah,
So we all, well, they're trying to teach me. So if you didn't have maybe somebody to bounce these things off, you'd be going from this team, they're telling you one thing, you're going to the next team, maybe you'd be so confused. Your brain would explode
yeah.
sometimes.
And it does help for the driver to have someone that's in their corner, right, and not to always be
Yeah.
um, saying you're right, because there's times you're wrong, and you need that critical feedback too. But when you're just the driver, it can be hard to have you know the confidence to say no. I know this is what we need to do. But if you've kind of have someone to talk it over with, and you decide, okay, yeah, this course of action makes sense. It helps. It can be nice to have an advocate. But you have to make sure that what you're doing is right, or at least so you can justify it. And that's kind of always been our thing.
Justification,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what
There's
we ask a lot of the team engineers, don't we?
yeah,
I love it when we're sitting in the engineering rooms with these guys. We say, okay, so how do you want Dalton to drive? And we let them have their say, don't we? And I think there's been some great occasions where teams have said, well, that's just what's fastest,
yeah,
with, with no real justification. But then there's some engineers that be like, oh, that makes some sense.
yeah.
Have you thought about this? And sometimes meditate.
Oh, Darren's I think Darren, your Wi-Fi dropped out for a sec.
I'm in and out. Am I back now?
You're back now, yeah. But yeah, like last year, we had a great run with the PR1 guys in LMP2, and working with their engineer, we had lots of great discussions. And his philosophy was, not the opposite, but it was different to what we normally would do. But he had a very strong art like a very strong and justified argument for why why he wanted us to drive that way, and it made sense. And maybe for that car, that might have been right for certain applications. I can see going three wide into turn one with
Yeah,
Rossi and Harvey here.
replay that, Doll. That's a good bit.
Yeah, that's a good clip. Sorry, we got a
Kind of
question.
getting towards the end of the race here, battling with a couple of guys that may be on older tires, and you're
Missing part of their
battling Rossi
wing.
and Harvey here. Yeah.
Rossi's always tough. He never gives you an inch.
No,
So this was good. We were mixing it up with these guys, and
yeah.
we can
I think this was
replay.
14th place. I think this is about where we thought we were going to be was going to be the best race for us. Um, if we could get out in 14th, we jumped a lot with our strategy. And you'd done a good job on restarts, and the second half of the race after the yellow was really clean.
Mhm.
Um, and these were the guys that we would have needed to beat to get 14th. So you can see
Yeah.
here coming out of the last corner.
Here we go. So this is my view of that replay there on push to pass. So here I'm thinking in this moment, okay, they're wide, so I'm going to go on the inside, and I know I've got this paint. I can probably put. I think with the rules, you can put two tires over that. So if Rossi really puts a squeeze on me, like there, I can go over that. I don't know what the rule would be in real life. It'd probably be the same. So just squeaked through there, lost the position to Harvey. But then going into turn 11, and this was while we're talking about COTA. Look back at some questions. Do you trail brake on courses like COTA? Sorry if I missed that point. No worries. AMK F16. Yeah, it's in the low speed corners, you can definitely use the trail braking to load the front and give you more grip and help rotate the car to the apex, carry more speed, kind of put the driver in control. So I think there's definitely a benefit to trail braking in places like this. But the caveat being that the car needs to be able to handle it. And in the iRacing setup that we're all using the same setup here. I think
Yeah,
Darren, we're getting feedback
that's
off
what
you.
I was going to go on to say,
Yeah.
Dalton. It has to be set up specific, right?
Yeah, because if the car is really can you mute your thing for a second? I'm getting feedback off your
Yep.
um, thingy. Um, if the car is really loose on entry, it can't handle that trail braking going in, and then you won't be able to do that. So you probably need to coast a little bit. But if you have the rear more secure, then you can get away with that. So that is something that we would normally do. Um, Atlantic Cat, has there been any talk of running one of these in rainy variable conditions? Can iRacing be set up for that? Do you know, Darren, does iRacing have
Well,
rain?
they do, and now that they've got the off-road stuff, the dirt track and the rallycross things, they are working pretty hard on multiple surfaces. They are using dirt as well as tarmac, like normal dry conditions, and they do have day to night races like at the Daytona 24 hours or Sebring 12 hours. They can do the sky changing from day to night, but wet races they haven't they have the spray is very difficult for them to model, right? You wouldn't be able to see anything, would you, Dalton, if it was
No,
rain.
the only I've driven, I think a Setta Corsa has rain.
Mm.
But I remember driving it and being like, yeah, this isn't it. It's just not. That's so hard to model.
These are the dry stuff is hard enough as it is. The
Yeah,
tire model, we're complaining to be trying to be better, better, better all the time. That's difficult enough, but
yeah,
rain would throw another spanner in the works, wouldn't it?
yeah. Okay, so to answer your question, yeah, it can, and actually from talking to Eric, the lead VD guy at iRacing, he was saying that one of the things they're working on is making making everything more dynamic as far as the track conditions and weather and all that. So it's stuff that they're working on, but it's an immensely difficult task, and they've already done a good job up to this point, even to get to where they are. Um, uh, MF 1422, awesome. Thanks, made perfect sense. Oh, thanks for watching. We appreciate your comments and questions. Oh yeah, it is Darren's birthday tomorrow. How old are you going to be, Darren?
21 again. Oh
Time,
man,
times two.
45. Oh dear. I was born in 75. Too old.
Yeah.
I decided to wear no hat today and show how bald I was to everybody. But I do want to ask a question to Dog's Bollocks, who's just wished me a happy birthday. Where are you from? You must be English. That is a very English name.
Yeah, that is.
Unless they're Canadian. I mean, you Pats are you're pretty close, aren't
Yeah, we
you?
do come up with an occasional
So no,
British term,
this has
right?
been good. We've got some good tech questions going on
Yeah,
there. We've explained a bit about the driving technique. The end of the race here. This
this was a
was
bit disappointing.
probably your only mistake of the race, wasn't it, here, Doc?
Yeah. Rossi throws it in there, collects both of them. We'll get no, damn.
Yeah.
Get a little loose on power. And I think that was the biggest complaint from all the, this is coming to the finish here. That was the biggest complaint from all the guys, really, that we just it's so hard to
Ah,
feel.
they might run out
There
of
you go.
gas.
No, we already
It's
crossed.
so hard to feel when the rear start to slip, and you can just get caught off guard. And there that was probably more my fault than the game's tire model. I think I just got a little excited that I was going to get
But
two
but
spots.
that's what you would have done in real life.
Yeah,
I was calling you to let him go because there was no way he was going to break later than you. and run, and he was going to run wide, and maybe even we could see it coming, right?
Yeah.
We were battling hard. That hairpin, everybody runs wide when they try and overtake. So let him go and try and crisscross back over him, and
Hmm.
that's what you did. But just a little too anxious on
And the
power.
thing is, in real life, you'd feel the wheel spin correct and then just kind of slide out of it. Whereas this thing, once the rear goes, it just keeps going.
Yeah,
That's the one deficiency I think with the model right now is that the recovery from if you have like the tires spinning when the rubbers slip in on the pavement, the recovery to back to I mean the rubbers always slip in, so it's not a simple case of like a static coefficient of friction to like a dynamic coefficient of friction, like something sliding. But there should be a better recovery of grip
yeah.
once there becomes less of like a, major scrub event. But it's
No, it's like
I'm
that when
sure
you
they
drop.
know.
Yeah, and it's like that when you're driving, not even when you like spin out, right? You get a
Hmm.
little bit of a moment, and in real racing, you have that moment and you collect it and you're back good to go. Whereas this, it nearly stays too long. But I
Yeah,
think they need to model for the tire degradation throughout the whole run.
hmm,
I think the math is, I think they're working on that tire model and the math of
yeah,
get a tire degradation, but also when you lose traction on track, getting that. I don't think the combo is very easy.
yeah. Well, and hopefully now that they've got 30 plus IndyCar experience guys
Yes.
racing 5 days a week for a month and a half, hopefully they'll be asking for some good feedback from us all because I think they'll you know I mean,
Make it better for
they
sure.
I guess they could come and watch our show and see what we have to say about it. But there's probably a good opportunity for them to get some good feedback. So hopefully they ask.
Yeah.
Have we practiced on IMS Oval yet? We'll wrap this up soon here. Have you? Yeah, did some qualifying runs yesterday, and did some practice qualifying runs today. So I think we've got decent pace. It's pretty tight. There's a fixed setup, fixed weather. There's no variability, so it's just so down to the minute little hand movements and scrubbing the grip or scrubbing the tires, and
It's
just
thousandths of a second.
yeah,
This is the whole field is probably going to be within 1/10 of a second
yeah,
for the one lap. It's going
it,
to it is going to be crazy. They had the qualifying for bump day effectively today, and some big names didn't make
yeah.
it for
Hinch didn't
thousandths of a
make it.
second.
Kyle
Yeah,
Busch didn't make it.
Elio, I don't
Robbie
think.
Elio didn't make it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean I don't know how much sim racing Elio does,
I
but
do. Yeah, I don't think
probably
much.
not a
No,
lot.
no.
So yeah, how do I think that race is going to go? I think it's going to be exciting. I've done a couple. Well, we did that race earlier in the month. Like the Mac Tools 300. That was at Texas. But the one before Texas for that elite
Yeah, you've done
iRacing
a race here,
series.
haven't you?
Yeah, they're pretty exciting. Major pack racing with the fixed setups. Everyone can run really tight. Tires will be important. Staying out of trouble will be important, and it'll be exciting. So hopefully we qualify up front and can stay there. But I'm sure we'll have our work cut out for us. So anyway, thanks everybody for the questions and for tuning in. Looking
Yep.
forward to bringing some action from Indy this weekend to wrap up the IndyCar iRacing Challenge, and we're going to keep this show going with either some other iRacing content, and then once we get back to the real thing, we'll have some real IndyCar racing to talk about.
Yeah,
Um,
we're going to try and develop it as much as we can. So, any comments that you guys have or anything else you'd like to see, camera shots.
yeah,
We're thinking of getting, webcams in the,
timing
GoPros in the
stand,
time stand, Dalton getting a visor cam in the real race. This is
more
all about
dogs.
going racing.
Yeah. Yeah, so let us know in the comments next time, and make sure to check out my Twitter for the. Speaking of dogs, you can hear Poppy. Make sure to check out my Twitter for the naming poll, and with the selected winner, we'll get the free visor. Or if we ended up going, if keeping the name as the Dalton Darren Show gets chosen, then we'll do a random draw. And yeah, anyway, thanks everyone.
Thanks very much,
See
everybody.
you
See you
next
next
week.
time.